When pigs fly and the stars align, the masses grow hyped, dare I say, for the new Call of Duty game. It's not a common thing. Often, before the game comes out, we are all angry at Activision for one reason or another. Maybe it's a season pass, maybe it's a setting we don't like, but no, not this time. We are excited, and that excitement has just gone stratospheric with the release of the alpha of the multiplayer onto the PlayStation 4. Now, to be clear, this is an older build of the game, hence alpha, and also we only get access to the 2v2 gunfight mode here. However, there are certain things we can determine about this, and that I've grown to appreciate about Modern Warfare that we didn't necessarily know before. So number one, something I really like about this game is the way it feels. And I know that's quite a nebulous thing to say, but let me explain. So firstly, the weapons. They have got a lot of kick to them and actually feel like devastating weapons of warfare. When I first used the M4A1 in this game, I just thought, wow, this thing is devastating to fire. Admittedly, it comes at the cost of a little bit of recoil, but I am happy to pay that price if that's a more authentic experience. And moreover, that really forces you to be more tactical with the way you fire your weapon. You have to do it in bursts far more so than you did before. There's also a lot of variance in terms of how you use the weapons. I mean, the pistol that you're forced to use in some of the rounds feels very weak, so you know you have to be quite tactical and make sure that if you're going to go after an enemy, you need to be able to get off enough shots to kill them. Whereas if you've got something like a shotgun or a sniper rifle, you just need to get that line of sight and then pull the trigger as fast as you can and end them. And again, when you fire the weapons, the feedback you get is actually quite profound. And this is probably a very strong reason to get the game either on console or to use a controller with the PC, because the feedback you get from the controller just adds to that whole thing. It's really masterfully done. Not every game takes the time to really properly implement rumble into their games, but I felt like it was really well done here. It elevated the experience a little bit more, especially when I was using something like the Desert Eagle. Also, new quirks of the engine, I found laser sights were quite cool. So when you're running around with laser sight, as you would imagine would happen in real life, the laser sort of fires all over the place super erratically, and you have to actually stand a bit still to use it. And also the way sights look now, and especially scopes, feel far more authentic and less arcadey to use. But what I really liked and I'm really impressed with is that none of this comes at the cost of that traditional Call of Duty speed and pace. I've heard some people say, and it's almost like a meme now, I'm really enjoying this slower pace. Now, I'm going to be straight up with you guys, I don't feel like the game is any slower than it's been before. I felt like if I wanted to stay at the back of the map and camp, I could do that, but if I wanted to just rush to the other side or move quickly with my teammate, I was open to do that, and I could aim down the sights perfectly fast enough to take out my opponent quite quickly. Maybe slightly slower than something like Black Ops 4, which is quite bombastic in the way you play it, but it is not a slow-paced game. It can be tactical if you want it to be, but yeah, if you are concerned that this is sacrificing the essence of what makes COD COD, don't worry at all. In fact, I'd say in some ways it's elevated, because especially when you fire some of these guns, you can see things like hit detection feel a lot more authentic. So when you get the kill cam, I remember in older games, say you sniped someone, you'd shoot them and you'd hit them, but it didn't look quite right. Maybe the blood splatter would be in the wrong part of the torso and they wouldn't necessarily fall correctly. But especially one bit in this gameplay where I fired the sniper at someone and they just went flying back in exactly the right way you would think. And it's like a physics engine that feels almost on par with something like Red Dead Redemption 2. Also, another thing which I really liked in the game was the sound. Not that Call of Duty games have ever had bad sound, but again, this feels like it's going to another level, right? There's almost this constant echo based on the shape of the environment, which is quite key to locating your opponent, especially as in this mode, and I think a lot of the modes from what I've heard, there is no minimap. So rather than someone shooting and you saying, red dot, run, kill, you hear them fire. And then you're like, okay, where roughly was that? Were they coming from the right, from the left? And admittedly, it's something that will truly give you an edge now if you use a decent pair of headsets. But even just playing on my monitor, I found it to be perfectly possible to locate my enemies purely based on the sound. And it's kind of interesting because now silencers are useful in a sense that an actual silencer is useful, because now you're not making as much noise, so it's harder to know where the shots are going off from. And also there's a little bit of smoke that comes off from your gun, looking sort of slightly, okay, maybe I'm exaggerating there. It's mostly about the sound I found to be useful for seeing people. But luckily, unlike Battlefield, I didn't have any issues seeing my opponent. I felt as if they were being properly highlighted. The only truly new gameplay mechanic was the mounting system, where you can put your gun onto a piece of cover, but it didn't feel overpowered at all, because if you wanted to do that, then it means you're sort of narrowing your response time. So if someone flanks you, you're absolutely dead. So you had to be quite careful actually in choosing to use the mounting system. But I'm glad it's there. Oh, and also when you do mount something, it actually feels like you're putting your weapon onto a surface. Again, unlike Battlefield 5, where it feels a bit like you're just taking your tripod out, but then it's not really touching anything, if that makes sense. You'll know what I mean if you've played Battlefield 5. When you mount a gun in Call of Duty Modern Warfare, you actually feel like you're mounting it on something, which is quite cool. And I suppose the only thing that I have to admit did concern me a bit, but keep in mind this is an alpha build, and I think a build from a while back, is that the frame rate is currently not up to snuff, right? It is not 60 frames per second. You can clearly see it's dropping quite a lot. Not going down to like 30 or anything like that, but it's not staying at 60. It's going like 55, 60, 50, 60. See what I mean? It's oscillating. I suppose the best way to say it is the frame pacing is currently way off. And I really hope that that's something very specific that they are looking to tighten up closer to release. I'm hoping it will be, and they have indeed said that that is a big priority for them. But I really hope, yeah, that's just the one thing I saw that I really hope gets fixed before the game comes out. But again, it's an alpha, I suppose it is to be expected. Also, the game does look a little bit blurry, I have to be honest, on PlayStation 4 Pro. I want the frame rate to be fixed way over the lower resolution here, but yeah, it's just something I have to admit I did notice. The game did look quite blurry on the PlayStation 4 Pro. In fact, it looked like it was using a very aggressive dynamic resolution that was shifting quite a lot, which is an interesting choice, to be honest. I feel like it's almost too aggressive. But again, these are two complaints that I really hope are specifically tied to the fact it's an alpha. But other than that, I am very excited for Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and I think you should be too. And hey, if you've got a PlayStation 4, go get the alpha. It's free. Just try it, see what you think. And yeah, if nothing else, it will be a little bit of training for you. But one last thing I did want to talk about was the game mode specifically that we have in this alpha, called Gunfight. It's quite a lot of fun, and it's not the kind of thing I would normally play. I'm generally more team deathmatch domination sort of person, specifically domination actually. I can just play domination forever, to be fair, in Call of Duty games, but they have sort of sold me on this, because especially with the omission of the minimap, this is going to be a game that will be far more tactical and will potentially, in cases like this, rely on a lot of coordination between people in the game. Now, to be fair, when I played this, I just wanted to get some footage, so I'm playing with a completely random teammate and I did zero coordination, and I just hoped they weren't going to be too bad or that I wasn't going to let them down. Luckily, in the footage I've got here, it worked out quite nicely. They were pretty decent teammates. But it's very clear that the way to play this is to play it with a friend, someone you can communicate with, and call out where the enemy team is, how to flank them, maybe their weakness, who's on lower health. I see a lot of potential in the mode for like friends or brothers, sisters, whatever to play. And yeah, I'm definitely going to be playing more of this mode when the game comes out, because I really was surprised at just how much I enjoyed it, again, just with a completely random ally on both times I played the game. So with that, subscribe if you want to see more Call of Duty, and as always people, thanks very much for watching and see you next time.